Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if you're new. I am Alice, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you my top 5 tips of how to get yourself into the arts. And by that I mean if you have an interest in the theatre or want to expose yourself to more theatre, these are my top 5 ways of doing that. My top 5 ways of giving yourself exposure to the industry. So let's get started. Although before I start, I'm just going to say that a couple of these are linked together and a couple of these just standalone. So I'm going to start with the standalone ones first, and then I'll do the ones that link together. So my first tip is to get yourself into an amateur or a community theatre group. Obviously, if you don't want to perform, then this one doesn't apply to you, because that's not something you want to do if you don't enjoy it. From personal experience of being blessed in the sense that for about half my life I've had exposure to all of my life I've had exposure to the arts. Also, if the light keeps changing, it's because it's the weather's really temperamental and I haven't got any artificial lighting today. It's literally just the windows. I've been exposed to the arts all my life. All of us have been exposed to the arts all my life, but I want to say more than I might have otherwise, maybe, I don't know. But I've had 6 years experience at Drama Academy. This one, although you can't see the pictures, but this one, and I've done so much with them, and I'm so grateful for the time I've spent with them, and I'm blessed that at all the times I've been there, everybody there has wanted to be there, and it's just made for such a great group. But then I flip it on my head and I do BTEC drama at school. So I do BTEC drama at school. I don't anymore. Well, I still do, but I'm doing A-level next year. But I did it at GCSE, and some of my class wanted to be there, and we made great pieces of drama when you were with the groups of people that did want to be there. But then you had those people that chose it as a cop-out, or because they thought it'd be easy, or because they didn't know what else to choose. So it's more enjoyable if you actually want to be there and you're surrounded by people that want to be there. If you want exposure to the arts but you don't want to perform, don't put yourself into a performing group. I feel like that's fairly self-explanatory, but yes. So even if there's not one near you, like at your local theatre, or there's not something you can join like that, find online platforms. There are so many online, whether that be Instagram accounts. I will leave my one in the description because we do so much cool stuff over there. There are so many Instagram accounts, TikTok accounts out there that do so many musical theatre things. They do fake casting musicals, so much like that. And there are so many companies that have moved online. One of my friends runs their own acting not acting company, but they're a group of friends that put on shows, and you can literally go and watch those shows they're on Zoom, you can watch them for free. So there's so many things like that out there. So if you can't find one in your local area to do, then there are options online. And also, if you are at that age where you're choosing your GCSE options, you can choose drama as an option, you can choose dance as an option, you can choose music as an option, and again at A-level. So that is my first tip. My second tip is to read literature. I don't know what else you're going to read. You read literature, but specifically, obviously, musical literature. So this is the Dear Evan Hansen book, but you can read. There are other ones available. This is just the one that I've read specifically, and it took me forever to get through because it kept making me anxious, because I'm an anxious person. So I was reading it, and then I'd get anxious, so I would stop, and then I'd read it again. But it is honestly such a great read. But there are obviously books like this one that are written from the stage musical. I don't know how do you word that? This was written, it was adapted from the musical. That's how you word that. But then you have some ones that the musical is actually adapted from the book. So Mary Poppins is adapted from a book, Matilda's adapted from a book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is adapted from a book. Well, lots of shows are adapted from books, so you can read them either way around. I think the interesting thing with reading books that are adapted from musicals, I don't know how many there are, but this one's a good one, is that there's more you can do in a book in terms of scene changes and showing different perspectives. So for this one, it's multi-narrative, which the musical is too. The musical is split between Evan and Connor, but it's really interesting that you kind of have Evan's perspective and then you see Connor's perspective, but you don't you can't get that from the musical. And I just found it really cool that I feel, I haven't seen the show, but I've always loved the music, so being able to read the book felt like the next bit of the stuff I could do to expose myself to Dear Evan Hansen. And it was great because it made me understand the story, which is something you can't get from the soundtrack of Dear Evan Hansen particularly. The amount of times I'd read and be like, oh, it's a song now, and I'd be singing the song in my head. And it was really cool because it's just, I don't know, I just loved it. So, yes. They're the two ones that are the most standalone of like my 2 points. And now my other ones kind of link together. So my third tip is to listen to soundtracks. If you want, I can do a video on soundtracks I'd recommend listening to. I've obviously done my top 5 musical soundtracks, which are my top 5, which I would 100% recommend listening to. But if you want, I can do a video based on books I recommend listening to start out, because I wouldn't necessarily say that my favourite would be ones you'd want to start out on. And you've probably heard tracks from musicals already, or you've heard tracks that are in musicals, even if they're not from musicals specifically. And listening to soundtracks makes you you'll discover musicals you like that you might want to then go and be able to see, and you'll also discover what type of musicals you like. So if you like Mamma Mia and We Will Rock You, you like jukebox musicals. But if you like Hamilton and Cats and Joseph and Les Mis, then you like sung through musicals. And if you like Matilda and like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you like more typically kids musicals. I don't like that because musicals are fair for everybody, but they are like your kids musicals, which are quite nice to get yourself into musicals. If you like Hairspray and Six and Dear Evan Hansen, then you like contemporary musicals. If you like Oklahoma and Showboat and South Pacific, you like old, I don't know what old musicals are called, but like more older musicals, like Golden Age musicals. So listening to soundtracks is a great way to discover musicals, to discover what you want to listen to, and also what type of musicals you like. And I know some people prefer to go and see a musical completely blind. Like, they don't like to listen to anything, they don't like to know very much about it, which is actually quite a nice way of doing it, because then it's all like, you're enticed by the whole thing. But theatre tickets are expensive, so especially if you're getting into theatre, you don't want to spend upwards of £50 on a ticket to discover you don't enjoy it. So even if you listen to bits of it or similar things and then you go, actually I like this, I'm going to book tickets, that's a good way. Yeah. I had a rice cake before I started this, and so my mouth's quite dry now. My fourth and fifth tips link into each other the most. So I'm going to start with my fourth tip, which is, oh, I've added a tip in. Never mind. No, I haven't. Oh, bother. I'm confused. Hang on a minute. I've unconfused myself. We're all good. So, my fourth tip is to watch movie musicals. So, things like Disney movies, they're great movie musicals. Things like, try to think of some that are actually quite good ones. Like, basically, a musical that's in a movie form. So, Cats. Although, if you're going to watch Cats, please watch the original one. Don't watch the 2019 one or whenever it was. Cats, Les Mis, again, it's not that great, but it's good to get you into the Les Mis world, and then you're like, actually, I quite like this. Let's watch the stage concert. I'd watch the stage concert, but that's different. So but yeah, watch Les Mis. I've said that. Mamma Mia. This is really difficult because so many of these are actually Disney films. Chitty, Hairspray, Joseph. That's a movie musical. So many of them are Disney films, like Mary Poppins, and things like that. Into the Woods, and that's a Disney one. So many movie musicals. Oliver. Movie musicals, they're great. You can rent some on YouTube as well, or buy them on YouTube. They are great, and my personal favourites are Mamma Mia, Mary Poppins, and I'm going to say No, I can't say that yet. I'm gonna say, I don't know what I'm gonna say. I don't know. Yeah, we'll go with whatever I just said. We'll just say Mamma Mia and Mary Poppins. They're probably my favourites. And Joseph. I don't know. So yeah, watch movie musicals because that's the musical in a movie form. Sometimes the movie came first. So Mary Poppins, the movie came first. Sometimes the musical came first. So Mamma Mia, the musical came first. Yeah, and there are also things like Matilda. That's a book first. Never mind, ignore me. I was gonna say it was a film and then it got turned into a musical, but it didn't. Well, it did, but not in that order. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know about Hairspray. It's another one. I don't know. But yeah, so watch movie musicals. And my fifth and final tip is to watch pro shots. The difference between a pro shot and a movie musical is that a pro shot is a recording of a recording of a musical, but as its stage production. So the obvious one is Hamilton, which came out on Disney Plus. I think that's probably the only place you can watch it, which is a bit of a pain, but it came out on Disney Plus about a year ago now, actually. And everybody was raving about it. And personally, I don't like Hamilton, but I sat through it and watched it. But I wouldn't rush to do it again. I don't know. I just wouldn't rush to do it again. But obviously, the most notable one is Hamilton. And hang on a minute, because it's the most notable one. Most people have heard of it, so I can talk about it more easily. If you've seen it or seen bits of it, you'll know that it's literally a recording of it happening on stage, and you wouldn't know that it wasn't. No, that's not what I meant. Like, it's quite obvious that it's happening on stage, so that means you get stagey elements and you get the experience of going to the theatre without actually having to go to the theatre, and it's great. And we need more pro shots, because if we don't have pro shots, then people turn to bootlegs, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, which are kind of bad because it's illegal, but it's basically the same as a pro shot, just they're legalised. Just pro shots are legal and the bootlegs aren't. But there are other pro shots available. There was an Everybody's Talking About Jamie one, I think, but I'm not sure. So you might want to look into that. Technically, the original Cats musical was a pro shot because it was the stage production. The staged concert film of Les Mis is a pro shot, which I would 100% recommend. I love it so much. There are probably other pro shots available. They're the only ones I can think of off the top of my head, but they are really good because you get to actually see a theatre production and see how it differs from the movie. Will she stop coming up and down the stairs? And you get to see the differences that being on stage makes, and yeah, I'd like pro shots a lot. But if you can't get a pro shot, then YouTube is a wonderful place, and there are lots of bootlegs, and most theatre kids will have watched at least one bootleg in their life. I've had to watch so many for my drama BTEC because of lockdowns. So yeah, that's, to be honest, that's the most of the bootlegs I've watched because of my drama. So I mean, but there are loads out there. They are great because, again, it's basically the same as a pro shot, except they're not as good quality, and sometimes the audio cuts out, sometimes you can't see because they have to hide the camera, and sometimes they get taken down before you can watch them. But if you find a bootleg, watch it. Just don't share it, and don't. Yeah, I don't know. Bootlegs are okay. They're just, with a pro shot, I'm assuming that the actors would have been paid extra as part of the pro shot because they're being paid to perform, but then part of that must be that they're getting a pro shot at the end of it or something, and they're aware of it, so it's not going to be distracting. But being filmed is distracting, it's illegal, and nobody gets anything from that, so it's kind of annoying because they are such a good gateway into the arts, which is why we need more pro shots, because that would be a gateway. So they are my top 5 tips. The big tip is to go see shows, but that's expensive. So my 5 tips help you to get to the point where you want to go see shows. But exposing yourself in arts is great. So they are my tips. Leave any tips you have in the comments or any questions for me in the comments. And yes, goodbye. A reminder that I will put a link to my musical Instagram in my bio, what's it called, in my description of this video, and there's a link to my blog as always in the description if you fancy going and reading it. Goodbye everybody.